Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How are you? I hope you're doing great. So today we're talking to David Ledgerwood, aka Ledge, aka Ledgy Ledge, aka Ledge Luthor. And we're talking about his new company, listennetwork.co. This is predictable growth for podcasts. So they help global B2B and B2C brands episode and follower promotion. In a nutshell, Ledge's company advertises on behalf of podcasts to get listeners, to get downloads, and basically raise the number and the quality of their audience. We're talking about like very fine-tuned targeting. Great conversation. Appreciate you guys being here. Ledge has said that he'll give first campaign, and I know we have a lot of podcasters that listen, so definitely book a demo with Ledge and let him walk you through it. Hope you enjoy the episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Kitcaster.com. Kitcaster books your podcast appearances. Specifically, Kitcaster works with funded startup founders, entrepreneurs with exits, and C-suite executives, and books them on the world's top podcasts. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're a founder, you're an operator, you're a CEO, we know customer acquisition is critical. And oftentimes the lead differentiating factor is the leadership up front. So if you're interested in founder-led marketing, leading your company from the front and driving results, check out kitcaster.com and apply today. That's kitcaster.com. What's up, Ledge?
Ryan, it's good to be here, man. Nice spending time with you always.
Always a pleasure, my friend. And, I've been in podcasting, podcast tech for many years. I know you have too. And I'll just say it, we've become old friends.
We have. And then emphasis on the old.
Yeah, emphasis on the old. Now, I want to talk about your new company, Listen Network, because it looks really cool. But before we dive into that, I want to ask if there's any cool new AI tools you're using right now that are kind of on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with, I don't know if it's new, but I love the roadmap that they're on with Descript. We're using the website of the Descript recorder now, which I believe used to be a different company. Didn't they integrate this? But I think that stuff is fantastic. The way that you can strip out and think about all your content that way. And in some of our production efforts, we're building all kinds of integrations where we can pull in different models, to do the writing and also some really cool workflow type of opportunities. Thinking about playing with Lindy, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. Build some agent stuff. And I have to say yesterday, as we're recording this, the new 4.0 image model came out. And if you haven't spent time with that thing is mind blowing. So really cool. Yeah.
I've been playing with that. You know what? And I can't get it. I would say 1 out of 20, it actually generates the image. And I'm like, hey man, what's going on? Why is it not generating the image? And it's like,
I wonder if it's like overloaded or something because it got so popular. But man, yesterday I fed it. I was just playing around with let me think about, could we use this to make podcast art? And I fed it just the header image from somebody's LinkedIn profile. And I said, using this image as the brain guide, just that low res freaking header image, and make me a 1:1 1:1 aspect ratio podcast art. The podcast is called This, and it's sponsored by this company. So make sure their logo is in the lower right-hand corner. And it did it perfectly. It was and I showed the person this graphic, and they didn't know that their own face had been generated with AI. So It's that good. Yeah. That's really cool. Wow. That's super awesome. It's cool that you did that spec art for me. So things are changing, man. Things are changing.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's truly incredible. And we'll be able to say I remember when it used to get letters and words completely wrong. But yeah, the text over image is perfect. The way it makes ads is perfect. When I was kind of getting a little chippy with it, like, hey, why aren't you generating the image? It's like, I am generating the image. I'm like, no, you're not. So,
Right, right.
so yeah,
And
it's,
and you are now on the kill list. So
yeah.
congratulations.
I went to a vibe coding meetup last night, really cool. And they were talking about being mean to the prompts, and it
Don't
actually
do it, man.
generates, they said it generates like positive outcomes. I'm like, dude, today, you don't think that they're going to have a longer memory than you?
Right, right. So if you haven't looked up, is it Rocco's Basilisk or whatever that thought experiment? Rocco's Basilisk, I think it is. Yeah. If you want to terrify yourself for the original thought experiment that will terrorize you, just go learn about that. So that'll scare you. So I, for one, and in support of our future robot overlords, that's all I have to say about that. So.
100%. I'm not comfortable being rude to the computer anymore. I'm comfortable being rude to the person who's serving my dinner, you know?
Right. I say please to ChatGPT, and
So do I.
I talked to it with respect because someday I'm going to be under the thumb, and I want them to know. So
Exactly. Keep pedaling the bike battery, please, Ledge, or the whipping will continue. Yeah.
I am
Well,
firmly plugged into the matrix, like us all, I think. So,
I want to give a shout out to our audience. Maybe they can help me. I've been actually really enjoying Lovable. I've been kind of like the last week trying to figure out where I'm going to commit, whether it's Bolt or Lovable, just kind of using my credits, seeing which ones I like. What's the other one?
isn't Vercel like the engine upon which a lot of these things is built? And I don't quite understand it all, but
Yeah. But I've been working on this. I just splurged on all my credits for the month because on Lovable, because I was making this like this shooting app so that I could watch the Nuggets game and say like, okay, Jokic just shot a court from this side of the 3-point line, and I wanted to measure the distance, whether it made or didn't make the shot, and then if they missed the shot, and I have them for the entire Nuggets lineup. So at face value, it looks beautiful, but I cannot get the thing to work. So I don't know if somebody listening to this wants to reach out, I'll share the project with you. I think it would be like just a cool little mobile app while you're watching the game to like do a little shot calculations for your team.
so you want it to watch for you, or where does the data come from?
No, what I've been thinking a lot about is is really the idea. It goes to like our human consciousness, and that a lot of what happens in our human consciousness is in the dark, which is to say it's either subliminal or it doesn't register to our memory feed. I can't remember what I wore yesterday, much less a week ago, less anything. I can't remember what I saw. There's probably vague images, and the more reps you get, advertising will tell you that you're more likely to follow a certain path.
Yeah.
So what we're waiting for then are there's a couple of tools that are coming out that basically are going to record everything in real time, omnipresent in your presence, that becomes basically a new memory feed for the rest of your life from the second you turn it on. So what we're going to have then is we're going to have hopefully an augmented experience, which is to say we can turn it off. Right now, we're not as able to turn it off, which is to say I'm watching Nuggets game. I'm also watching TikTok at the same time. I would rather have an augmented experience where I can pull back filters and decide what I want into my conscious stream and what I want to like delegate to my memory stream. And I want to make that decision later. So when I'm thinking about like tools or stuff that I'm curious about, it's like, how do I have tools that accompany what I'm doing to give me kind of the fidget pleasure of like looking at TikTok, but still being engaged with the game. So what I'm thinking is like, while you're watching the show, or I'm watching a Nuggets game, right? They're playing the Sacramento Kings, and I've got 5 fingers. So there's differentiation for which finger I use is which player, and where I tap on the screen is where they took or missed the shot. So that like you're just kind of having this kind of like tactile experience of watching a basketball game or a football game or a movie or whatever.
Interesting. Yeah, you turn it into a second screen fidget.
Yeah.
I get this. Yeah, absolutely. And then it's a little bit like what's the video game with the fake guitar?
Guitar Hero.
Yeah, Guitar Hero, right? Like it's sort of like a miniature version of that for annotating your basketball experience. Then you could aggregate all of it from all the fans
Yeah.
and have the authoritative version of what actually happened based on statistical distribution. So there you go, Statcast right there.
Yeah.
Crowdsourced Statcast.
Yeah.
And then your memory feed is available to the next Black Mirror episode, and everything will be fine. So
And this is the question I've been thinking about too, is like how much we're going to delegate memory to external things, and what's the blowback from that? Is that net positive or is that net negative? Well, they already talk about like now that kids have AI brain, like they're not able to they don't even have the patience to write the prompt. They're getting irritated that they have to write a prompt to get the proper question answered on their test. So there's a certain laziness that happens. Now, from our culture and our experience, like having a very focused cerebral cortex in the front of your brain has got like very competitive advantages, and the outcomes are just are obvious. But if I'm to like search the depths of my own mind, this isn't the most pleasurable place to be. There's like these techniques in like Dzogchen sitting practice where there is a aspect of our consciousness that's so fundamental and mundane, we don't even think about it. We just kind of glance over it with everything else that our brain's doing and our feelings are doing, that there is this kind of vast area of just like general pleasantness that once somebody points it to you and says like, this is it. This is the thing, like pay attention to this, and not necessarily pay attention, but rather slide your consciousness into it. And it's super pleasurable. And it's not calculating. It's not predictive. It's not ruminating. It's just this place of peace. And it feels like there's almost a crispness, and like it feels intelligent, for lack of better terms. So my reasoning here is if more people figure out that here's a great way to find peace and contentment in a certain moment is by kind of jumping into this particular feeling and sensation that's always omnipresent. It just it contributes to human flourishing in a much different way. The downside is you're like, well, I'm not going to remember my times tables or whatever, but we've outsourced that now. We've outsourced all that. So now if we need to commit to the memory stream, the future projections, or reminiscing about the past, we can just bring it up, Siri, what up?
there you go. I get that. And then, then you have the eternal, what is it? Eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Yeah. So you just go, I don't like that one. Let's just delete that. That never happened. So
Yeah. Or you're just kind of always deleted. And you're just recalling. Yeah.
That's 51st dates, right? Just wake up in the morning and be like, remind me who I am.
Yeah.
Because I'm just blissed out. So
Have you ever had that experience though, when you wake up and it kind of slowly pieces together like your whole reality? Oh yeah, I'm in a bedroom, my house, my life. Okay. And it like slowly kind of regenerates.
there are some times I remember from college waking up places that I shouldn't have been. And that's not what you mean though, right? No. So yeah.
No.
Yeah, I have had that experience where it slowly sort of reconstitutes. It's like the I don't know, the tablet is waking up. What page was I on? It happens to me driving all the time. Does that happen to you? Where I'm just driving somewhere and I'll snap out of it and be like, where the hell am I and where am I going?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is either two things. It's projecting the future or ruminating in the past, where you're so checked out, that like, and everything goes on autopilot though. You're perfectly safe to drive the vehicle. You just missed your exit a mile ago. You know?
Oh, I just did that the other day. And like, I think I passed the restaurant a long time ago. And the kids were in the car and the kids said, yeah, I think we did. Like, how come none of us even thought about that for 1 second until we're like, where the hell are we?
So that's also to say that we're predisposed to
Yeah.
let autopilot take over sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, and
That
that's the natural pattern recognition and, sort of like, well, the mental imprint of habit, and which is why habits are good. If you form good ones, you'll do good things. If you form bad ones, you'll keep doing bad things. So,
Yeah, I don't know. So that if it becomes optional, if you become consciously
mm,
able to snap into not necessarily that kind of autopilot, because that's almost the exact opposite of like,
right. That's the disassociated one. Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah,
it'd be like the
you would
opposite where
want
you're like,
intentionality. Yeah.
yeah. But soon enough we'll have like, our cars can drive itself. I mean, I was playing with that
Mm,
with my Nissan. It's got autopilot or whatever, you just so you could like literally like disassociate to the whole driving experience, slide into some more pleasing realm of consciousness. Your little, a wearable is going to be recording everything, and you can already have prompts of what you want to commit to memory and what you don't.
wow.
I don't know. I don't know. But I'm really interested in this, like how, and largely from this weird crux of like what is been traditionally known as like spiritual or esoteric, is
Yep.
probably just like it's just a realm of physics that hasn't been
Sure.
explained yet.
Right.
And I think we'll have these tools that will be able to start to like kind of provide
And
a story to kind of take the mystery out of it, at least maybe a little bit. So
there's a lot of interesting work around consciousness and embodied consciousness and stuff like that. That I was just listening
yeah,
to a podcast about that. I'm like, if I just had endless time, that's actually what I want, right? Is like just like the Matrix, you plug in a little card and be like, I know kung fu, and it's just like
yeah.
I'm going to read this 1,000-page book, but it's going to take me a very long time. And wouldn't it be cool if I could just have that book? So,
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. All right. Nice, man. That was a great tangent. But hopefully this is what I'm going to be like spending a lot of time thinking about and like in investigating is this are all these tools, quantum computing, robots, AI going to help human flourishing, but also how is it going to augment our experience and change like the subjective value of our lives, So
We
we'll
are
get
at
into
the
it.
very interesting spot where it is moving fast enough that I think in our lifetimes, I don't know about you and me, we're about halfway through, right? So I figure that all things going in our favor, we'll get to see some, not end point, but at least some pretty cool point of of that. So, it's a neat time in history to be alive there. And, I mean, I can remember starting my first business and Google Docs was in beta and everybody said, this is stupid. Nobody's going to do this. And I forced my team to use this god awful approximation of what we now know as Google Docs. Cause like, look, you can collaborate. I don't
Yeah.
care that it only has 2 headers. Like, it's going to look like garbage, but get off Microsoft Word because this is awesome. So,
Yeah, I know. And that was like
and like
yesterday.
what it used to cost to host an app, to do any of these things. I was just on a call with a developer playing with one of those, new tools, and it was like, deploy me a custom WordPress site, go. And
Yeah.
it just did. Yeah, I mean, stuff that would you like, we're talking about like operating at like 1,000th of the time necessary to do things, and obviously there are implications of like that new graphic model, right? Like, ooh, graphic designers just got like, clocked. Like, I mean, this, oof, we're gonna have to deal with a lot of societal change on where income derives from.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That was really worrying me for a while. I think though it's going to be net positive by an
Oh,
order of
absolutely.
magnitude. And I think also that disruption, at least as far as like job goes, is going to be gradual over, 5 or 10 years.
I
You
think there
know,
will be sectors that are hit, not unlike, I don't know, like I come from New Jersey originally and still one of the only states left, I think, or the only state left where people pay someone at the gas station to pump their gas for them. And, ultimately things like that disappear and jobs change. And, you could certainly take the optimist track on that. And I hope that we do that. So.
Well, we've been waiting for robots for a long time, but GPT, for example, I had some legal documents I needed redlined from my attorneys the other day. And so I was like, all right. So I opened up Gemini, GPT, and Perplexity and said, hey, look out for my best interest in redline this document, and sent it through all three. And they all had great recommendations. Give me any potential red flags. Let me know how I can make this better in my interest, but fair, And it was great.
Yep.
And then send it to the attorney, because it's like, boy, if I can cut that check out, that's a big check. The document that came back from the attorney, 100 times better than what was coming out of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think lawyers are probably tired already of people showing up and be like, well, I ChatGPT this. I'm like, well, that's freaking garbage. And if you sign that, you're in trouble, but I do think that people are using these tools maybe in a way that isn't as helpful for themselves, because you could do that type of exercise and go, explain this to me. Like, does anybody really know what that clause means? This and all those things, write this in a way that I can understand it so I can actually talk to the expert. And I think there's a lot of, I think of most of the AI not as generative, but as a thinking partner. I wasn't going to hire an analyst to do that, but if I can do my thing better by using this, proxy analyst, that's a good use case. So I use it as a thinking partner. I drive around and talk to ChatGPT. I probably look like I'm crazy, but
yeah, no, me too, man. I mean, it's very cool. I went to this networking thing last night, like I mentioned, and just hearing how other people are using the tools, it really has this, and they're all developers and entrepreneurs, and the way they're using the tools is just like this, with this kind of feeling of wonder and awe, just like, dude, I tried this. So what did you try?
Yeah.
If I fed it this, so you're sharing ideas and prompt engineering, and well, did you try this? And if you move it over from there, just really cool to know that we're just at the dawning stage of this stuff. So it's awesome. Brother, I know we only had 30 minutes allotted for time. We got probably 10 minutes left. Can you go a little bit over? Because I definitely want to talk about your product.
Yeah, I got another 15. So
okay,
let's
cool.
do it.
Let's do it, man. Well, let's talk about Listen Network. And one thing about the audience of this show, I've been very fortunate to build a network of podcasters over the years, largely because I build products to support podcasters. I love those. I love podcasters. I love the talkers. They're for me, So a lot of the listeners to this podcast, they're the best. A lot of listeners to this podcast and a lot of subscribers to the newsletter are podcasters. And you've built a very cool tool, listennetwork.co, that is there to help support podcasters build their listener base. So give us a little walkthrough of kind of what you do and how you do it.
Sure. So, the classic challenge with podcasts, particularly I learned of this of being a podcaster, and then from the agency side, it's just we all have to pay one way or another to get this thing done. And unless it's a hobby, which is fine, be a hobby creator, someone pays for this thing. And that person probably, if they're paying for it, wants some kind of ROI from it. That some section of the people that want ROI from the thing are going to measure that in right or wrong. I know the definitions. I understand this, but you walk into, let's say you're branded, you walk into your VP of marketing for your budget meeting. They're going to say, how many downloads do you have? And how do we know they're from our customer? And we set out with that idea is how do we do that? Because podcast data is terrible. And, whatever you can draw out from your demographics or from, the 30% of your audience that's on Spotify, there's all kinds of arguments to say, well, you can't buy downloads. And we said, well, why can't you? And the reason is, well, you can, but you don't know who they're from, and they're crappy and they're bots and whatever. In any domain, there's a bunch of really shady gray hat and black hat ways to do a thing that games a number. We said, well, what would be the white hat transparent way to do that? And who actually knows everything about everybody, you, me, whatever? It's ad networks. So we said, well, how do we connect the idea that we could have display and social ads that are actually targeted to the right people, and then make sure that the conversion action that happens when clicking that results in the download that people are looking for, and then track and align all that data. So Listen Network built the middleware to do that. So now you got your Buzzsprout, you want your chart to go up. That's cool. You can buy and fake all those things, but we want to design a way that people could say, I want 500 downloads on each episode from VPs of marketing at SaaS companies that focus in the fintech sector. And we can use LinkedIn to do that. And you get a lot of brand expression or brand exposure to go along with that. And it's like, I always argue, like, there's a model in marketing called PESO. It comes from the SpinSucks, Jeannie Dietrich crowd. I love it. It's available open source, and it's PESO, paid, earned, shared, and owned. These are the channels and the types of things that you could mix into a strategy. Well, podcasting in general focuses on the ASO. It's earned, it's shared, it's owned. We get all those things. And I would just say that, well, that's a four-legged stool and we chopped one out. And let's bring in paid in a way that is useful. And I also think that if you want to grow, a podcast, I always say a podcast is a media startup. And if you were to make a startup with product in any way, you would follow the playbook that said, I ought to have half my money go to product development and I have to have half my money go to promotion. But in podcasting, we have somehow trained everybody to essentially just go, I'm going to put all my money into product and then I'm going to share it a little bit and maybe somebody will do something. And it's like, that's actually not how that's going to work. So if we were to take our money and put it into paid promotion, we get better shows. And I just continue to argue that we're artificially chopping out that one piece and calling it a budget constraint. It's not. You should just spend your budget differently. And Listen Network lets you do that in a way that is not shady and is white hat and can then provide a lot of intelligence and data about your audience because we draw it from a source at the ad network.
100%. What I like to think about it like is, let's not reinvent the wheel. Like, if you want someone to see your movie, your TV show, your sporting event, whatever, what do you got to do? You got to promote it. You pay for performance. And where the advantage of this is that you can target the audience to very hyper localized niche, because if you're going to run a successful podcast, chances are, if you're not already famous, you need to be servicing a community that's underserviced, and that's very highly filtered.
Yeah, absolutely. A niche audience is fantastic. Look, I'm not saying don't make great content. You still have to make content and make people stick around. You do need to share. You do need to engage. You need to go on other podcasts. You need to do earned media. I'm just saying, why are you artificially cutting this one leg out? It doesn't make any sense. And we can do that. And therefore, it's not, discovery isn't out of your hands the way that it would be by trying to game, just very rudimentary 2012 level SEO in two podcast apps where people need to know to search for a specific thing. The charts are all gamed. That doesn't matter. You can't run up the chart without cheating anyway. So at some point, you got to start the discovery train somewhere. Let's put the show in front of the people it's supposed to be for, link it to the downloads to show that actually happened, which means we had meaningful conversion and engagement. I agree that's not the full pie. I just think it's a necessary part of the pie. And we're not teaching people to do that. And we should, and shows are dying because of it. And budgets are getting cut. Agencies are losing clients. And far more on the agency side, it's going to become, because of this AI discussion, it's going to become impossible to make an argument that I can make a flourishing agency based on marking up production, because the marginal cost of production is going to zero.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like any product, a podcast is, it's not if you build it, they will come. You have to have go to market. And especially if you're an established podcast, even better time to relaunch or to go to market. Now, one thing I know, I own a podcast advertising marketplace, and so working with like the biggest, most popular podcasts in the world, they're all paying for advertisement.
Right.
So, for folks who are not initiated, the way that most podcasters get paid is on a CPM model. So for every, 1,000 listeners, they get a couple of bucks, whether it's $5 to I've seen CPMs as high as $110, depending on like how niche and in demand
A hit.
that yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So all the biggest shows are paying to advertise their show to get the downloads, and they're using the sponsorship money from their show to just cycle
Fund it.
in and to fund the advertising campaign. So it totally makes sense. And what I love about yours is that it's a low cost to buy in. Like people can come in, they can experiment with it. Podcasters can see how this is going to affect their numbers, especially if they're in a position where they really want to start courting advertisers. Because even if you're the most niche qualified person in the world, it's going to come down to like how many people listen to your show on a per show monthly basis. So it's something that has to be on their radar. And so when they're thinking about advertising, benefit with you guys that I see immediately is, your knowledge in the space and really this ability to be able to target, particularly in like B2B tech audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think LinkedIn is a gold mine for this stuff. Like if I only want to reach a very niche business audience, that's the only way to do it. And when we built the product, we looked at it and we said, why are people running $9 per click ads to drive traffic to some obscure landing page and then nothing happens?
Yeah.
Like at least let's log the download there, and we can do it for substantially cheaper than that because we ran, I mean, and on the nerd side of it, what's going, people say, how do you sell downloads? How do you know what they're going to cost? The answer is we don't. We ran so many iterations of this thing, and we basically built, it's like an insurance marketplace. So I can sell you downloads because we ran millions and millions of iterations of this thing, trained the models. We know roughly on average across the entire pool what a download costs. We're paying the CPM, we're paying the CPC. And if we're wrong, guess what? We just took a loss on it. That's the tornado that hit the house, but everybody else paid their insurance. So we can level the field. What's a download cost? I know exactly what a download costs because we're allowing everybody to pay at the same thing, not blow $1,000 on LinkedIn ads to get nothing.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it costs between $1 to $5 per download.
It does.
Yeah, man. Let's talk a little bit. Let's get in the weeds here. So there's something that's called an IAB verified download, and then there's also going to be various platforms. The big three being, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube,
Right.
and then maybe differentiate between like a download, a listen, and a subscribe, because that's going to be
That's
important.
absolutely right. Everybody should know this, and you'd be surprised how many people in the podcast industry don't know this. IAB is the Interactive Advertising Bureau. They're the standards body, if you will, that defines what's an impression, what's a video watch, what's a download. It's a standard measure that advertisers can use so that they can measure those things, kind of effectively, right? So the definition of an IAB verified download is at least 60 seconds of listenable media plus metadata minus bots, shady things, and other bad practices has moved to the target device. It does not mean anybody heard any audio at all. And that's just the reality of it. And that's the way people have measured because that was the most standard measure, at the time. Do I tell you you should not have listeners? Absolutely not. I'm telling you that nobody can find your show, and a download at least gets you partially there in the way that we're doing it. Now it's your job to make it compelling and make it people want to click on and listen to that thing. A listener, to my knowledge, is defined sort of differently by each platform, but at least 60 seconds, my guess would be, actually heard the audio. Then you have the issue of we've got a podcast host that measures these things, but the distribution points are the major marketplaces such as Spotify or Apple or what have you. And those players have no vested interest at all in sharing any type of data because they want you in their walled garden. So we built a web player that does the tracking, and it sits at the same level as Apple or Spotify in your stats. It's going to show as a web agent. We're very clear about this. We're not trying to hide anything. It's the best solution that you could get at the time. If the technology evolves and it lets us do additional tracking, if the major players let us do additional tracking, cool, let's go do that. You can't do it right now because they won't let you. And it's our best effort then to try to drive people through additional click-throughs and say, go follow this thing, go follow this show. At least it's in your face. At least a download happened. Click here, go to Spotify, go to Apple, follow the show. Like, we're trying to get you to do that. And there's a lower conversion on that, but at least we're going to try to make that effort. A follower had to go to that app in particular and take that particular action. When people tell you they can sell you those things, what they're actually doing is just incentivizing users who aren't people that care about your show. They're not in your target market at all. And they're being paid to go there and click that button, listen to a few episodes, and leave a review. And you can do that, and you can run up the charts. It's black hat and it's fake, and it won't drive your business forward.
Yeah. In this kind of advertising for your show, maybe some people are a little bit tentative to dive in because it's more
not just filling them all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's more expensive than other forms. But the fact of the matter is the value of a podcast listener is much, much greater than that of someone on TikTok or someone on Instagram, largely because it is a component of owned media. Like, if you have someone subscribe to your podcast, you have them for life. There is not a social graph, which is to say there's no For You page with podcasting. When it comes up, you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to Ledge's podcast. And
there's no suggestion engine, it's terrible. Like, it's really not good.
Yeah, there's no, well, and also it takes time to like kind of mosey up to a podcast. Probably like any other relationship. Like, you got to get accustomed to somebody's voice. You got to get accustomed to their
I'm the weirdo that goes back to episode 1 from 2018 and starts it and then listens to all of that. Like, I am that guy. I realize that people do not do that, but I'm that guy. So nice. I have done that several times. I will listen to your full catalog if I like you. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're sophisticated enough now with podcasts that we know things that are big deal breakers. For me, English accent, I'm out. I just can't do it.
I think they sound smarter than us dumb Americans. I don't know about,
I don't think so. There's something about
not a cool accent to me. I don't know. So
something about English, Irish, Scottish. No way. Scottish is bold. I mean, I love the Scots, but man, come on now with that accent. So, but that's to say that, like, an investment in your audience is a good play if you take it seriously and if you find a
we can show this over the course of time. If you run a small campaign on every episode over the course of years, your organic growth will go up because it's based on more exposure. Based on more discovery. The mistake I see people make is that, well, let's just boost the first one for launch. Well, then your chart's going to be all over the place. Like, that would be like if once in a while you run an ad campaign for your business. Like, nobody does that who is actually looking for a conversion. So let's build the base not at 0 for episode 1, but at 250, at 1,000. Like, let's get the thing in front of people so we have a chance to build momentum. So if you don't build those numbers early, you aren't going to get funded later. And when it comes to that, everybody drops off at like 90% fail at episode 8. It's because it's soul sucking to have a 0 every single time you bust your ass spending hours making an episode. And you don't have to do that. So, like, let's just solve that problem for the industry with a novel approach. And it will cause things to exist longer, and it'll stop creators from getting fired and losing their jobs, and marketers and getting laid off, and agencies will stop losing clients. And on the agency side, they can actually make more money on this than they can make on production.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just, I'll tell you, the challenge of, like, everybody has feedback is just they're so used to being pitched shadiness in this category that when I reach out to people on LinkedIn, I literally have to say my intro message is no pitch slap, I promise. I just want to actually network with podcast professionals like yourself. And I mean, I have to say that because everybody's used to being hit all the time with shady podcast growth crap. So
It slapped. I love that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's
It,
amazing.
it,
What?
it works. I mean, so that's the weird thing about actually doing something right in a category is that nobody believes you. So,
Yeah. Nice. Well, we can dispel those rumors now. Let's talk a little bit about your business model. Now, you mentioned that it sounds like you're kind of getting paid on the arbitrage of all the campaigns in aggregate.
that's right.
What is your business model? It sounds like there's also opportunity for production companies or agencies.
Yes, we are willing to sell directly to a podcaster if necessary and sort of act as the direct contact there. But what we have found is this is much more valuable for agencies themselves because now an agency can sell as part of their package. I guarantee you a certain number of downloads per episode. If agencies do that, we have agency pricing that allows them to mark up to what is essentially the MSRP. So the agency can mark up each download and make money on promotion in a way that they couldn't do before. So it allows the agency to make a promise that keeps their client around, and it allows them to make more gross margin. In some cases, it's 50%, and that's okay. And the client still loves it, and that client sticks around. So instead of churning that show, and we did this internally at one of our own agencies, 40% better client retention rate for podcasts. Like that's
They
a lot
love
of
to see the
money
numbers. Yeah, they love the numbers.
because when podcaster X at the company that you work for and produce a show for goes to the next marketing meeting, I guarantee you they're going to get grilled about how many downloads and who are they from. And now we can provide you with that data with fidelity. And that allows you to get through that meeting and say, this thing is valuable. We should keep doing that. Everybody says, oh, well, it takes time to grow an audience and all these things. You can't say that in a budget meeting. You know why? Because you're going to get cut off at the knees. And you're in there trying to get somebody to give you money for a thing. Make sure that thing can show ROI. So we have become enamored with pitching the wrong stuff to the people who want to pay for something else. And I would like to stop that from the business seat so that podcasts don't die and agencies don't go out of business.
Yeah, man. Nice. How big is the team?
We are pushing 8 now, I believe. Yeah. So I would call us a technology enabled service. There's a lot of stuff behind there. We don't want to do the self-serve thing. We actually like being able to provide that analyst layer and customer experience layer. There's like people talk to real humans. They like to do that. There are players in our space that have attempted the self-serve. They like it that way. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But, I think it doesn't allow the high touch that we want. So we want to be able to make this white label. Nobody even knows you're using it. Like this is a powerful report mechanism for you, the podcaster, or to your audience, to your sponsor, or to the funding entity. Maybe it's your business.
Cool. When you're thinking about the next 12 months, what does growth look like for Listen Network?
Oh, it's up and to the right for sure. So
yeah, what does that look like? Is that hiring? Is that creating new products?
I would like to bring on. I'm hoping to bring on every agency in the world, to use our stuff. So I mean, that's where I'm going. We are working with some large ones now. For a clip there, for the first year and a half, we were doing about 15% month over month growth. It slowed a little bit, so it's been fun. I just want to make people aware of the product and the service that we can provide. And like I said, though, I think the biggest thing is just like, look, if one more agency gets to do what they do and work with creators and be strategists and, just go out and get additional podcasts to happen and stick, like I think that's a win for the industry.
You bet. And then what would be an average size of campaign that you're working with, or what would be a recommended budget for someone to get going?
Yeah, what we see is the minimum that actually works is right around that 250 downloads per episode. So it's not for a beginner. I mean, I understand that's expensive there. The challenge that we have is just the campaigns are simply too small. Like they will not execute unless you have a budget large enough to do that. So I would say the smallest you could do is about 250 per episode. which could be, you know, a couple grand a month. So if we could figure out to run it smaller, we're happy to do that. But it doesn't, the technology limitations have us there. So
It's really not a big barrier to cross if you're talking about $2,000 just to get going and to kind of familiarize yourself.
I mean,
and
it'll make a
also-
huge difference on your numbers. You know, it's not an arbitrage play either. Like, as far as like, if you're selling, you know, you need, let's say $10,000 a month to get into, you know, a network marketing type of situation, you know, like you run, and you can't buy 10,000 a month and then try to arbitrage that and make CPM. Like, the numbers are upside down. So,
Right.
you know, you do have your job ahead of you to, I would just suggest that it continues to boost the bottom of that audience and cause new discoverability that you just simply wouldn't be reaching in your target market before. So great for niche shows, great for B2B. In some instances, a creator that has a niche audience. I do not think it suits well for the, what I might say, like the small agency or rather ABM style. You know, I mean, it could, but there's a top of funnel discovery type of thing going on here, and you're spending a little bit on awareness of your show. So, you know, when I talk to somebody, I'm self-skeptical about which, you know, will this benefit your business and how, you know, and we want to make sure that people are making money on it. So,
Yeah, well, and you know, podcasting is a long play. And what I've seen anecdotally is it's great for B2B technology brands, for companies that have a large lifetime customer value with a long sales cycle, but they tend to keep customers around a long time. Like
Right.
it's a great play. So then if you can get in a position where you have sponsorships or you're your own sponsor, maybe you're a little upside down as far as the advertising cost, but you just have to put that into customer acquisition in general. And
I
if
think that's right. Yeah.
you know, and just see that as an expense of doing the business, you know, because if you do have large lifetime customer value, then, you know, $2,000 entry in a month is makes a lot of sense.
I think that's right. And I think if you have particularly a high cost of acquisition too, it could be good for businesses of that sort, where it's just like you're dropping a ton of money anyway. And I would suggest that at least boost your own stuff. Don't necessarily spend your money on advertising on somebody else's stuff. You know, it's like this cuts both ways, right? Like, you can grow your downloads and audience and the exposure of your show. These are probably dollars you're spending elsewhere, potentially not even driving to your own content. So
You can't track the click. That's the difference. Is with this, you can track the click.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting a 60-second play.
you're getting a 60-second download, and
Download. Important
play is
differentiation.
like, right. And yeah, and again, I think a lot of people would glaze over that and go, yeah, buy our thing. They'll definitely hear it. I'm not saying they're going to hear it. I'm saying that a download happens, and that's the definition that a lot of people are basing things on. And we can retarget them. If they come and download the episode, we're going to retarget them on episode 2. Like, if you keep doing this, it works the way that it's supposed to do. So
Amazing. This has been awesome, Ledge. Anything I should have asked you, but I didn't.
no, man, you're wonderful, and it is always time. It's wonderful to spend time with you. I would love if anybody checks out Listen Network. You would end up talking to me because I'm the guy that's on that form. So you would directly get on my calendar, and I'd be happy to hit you with that. And if you're not ready for that, I am David Ledgerwood on LinkedIn, and I write about this stuff almost every day. Post a lot of stuff. Want to talk to podcasters. Want to connect with agencies. So if you are a podcast pro of any sort, I will not pitch slap you in DMs. So please reach out to me.
Yeah, for all podcasters, Ledge is a great follow. Definitely check him out on LinkedIn. And also, I've heard rumors that if you mention the podcast when you do a demo with Ledge, he's going to give you 10% off your first campaign. So
I will do that. We will
take
do that.
advantage of
Yeah,
that,
please
ladies and
you
gentlemen.
reach out. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, man. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
So let's talk about podcasts for a second. You're listening to one, which is awesome, by the way. Thank you so much. But have you ever thought about being a guest on a podcast? Like, seriously, imagine sharing your story and your expertise and your business all on shows where your ideal customers are already listening. Kitcaster connects founders and entrepreneurs, professionals, with podcasts that actually make sense for their brand. No pitching, no guessing, you just have great conversations on great shows. And the best part, Kitcaster handles everything. You just show up and bring your A game, Kitcaster does the rest. This is hands down one of the easiest ways to grow your personal brand and just create a wellspring of content for short video, for blog posts, for speaking engagements, for whatever. So if you've been thinking, yeah, I really need to step up my content game, go to kitcaster.com and apply today. Now back to the show.